Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. For this week's episode, I have a guest on, and that guest is actually my roommate, and his name's Joey Herrera, and basically he is somebody who I met through improv at Second City, and we've actually performed on stage together a couple times. Super cool dude. He's into art, making music, and of course, obviously performs improv. And we have a pretty dope conversation here. It's pretty much going to be about art itself, because we both are into the arts, obviously. Writer's block and kind of the other impediments and, as the war of art would call it, the resistance and kind of how to address that. And then we also talk about how art can shift your perspective and just how important changing your perspective is, and trying to change it as often as possible is. So I think it's a super interesting conversation. And we didn't really have like a super well planned out start to it, so we're kind of going to just dive into the conversation. But I hope that you guys enjoy this one. It's about 37 minutes long. So give it a shot. Check it out. Let me know what you guys think, and enjoy.
I think for me it always derives from the task. So like if you're like, I have to sit down and write this, then the writer's block always pops up, like in that time when you're like, I need to finish this paper in an hour, and then of course you get writer's block. But like the past few years where I haven't really taken the approach like that, where I sit down and force myself to write, I only write when I'm inspired, so therefore I don't really face writer's block because I'm not putting that task on myself. But I've had it in the past for sure.
Do you feel like you're making as much content though when you're not making that concerted effort? Because I do think there is an element to putting yourself in a position where you are uncomfortable writing, or you're uncomfortable doing whatever you're doing, whatever your creative endeavor is, and you force yourself to do it. And although what you make may not be the best thing, it's the fact that you're flexing the muscle that day that is like a good practice to engage in.
No, I agree. And that's like the discipline aspect of it, like forcing yourself to sit down and write every day for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And that's like that book, The War of Art and Turning Pro. Yep. He talks about all that, and it's like beating resistance, like, you know you should sit down and write every day, but that little voice in your head is making excuses why not to. It's gonna be hard. Yeah, and I have writer's block, so might as well just not, wait till it goes away. Yeah. And he says like writer's block goes away by just like staying in the pocket. Like maybe you're stuck for 15 minutes, but write all that bullshit, and even if it's not good, eventually it'll lead to something. And so I guess just lately I just haven't really. Writing hasn't been one of the things I've been focusing on.
No, you've been doing
so much,
art and other stuff.
But I definitely would run into, so I wouldn't call it writer's block, but open Photoshop to make a piece, and sometimes it's just not clicking, and you're like, but you just keep banging on it, and you keep fucking banging on the piece until something comes. Yeah, so it really is, I think, persistence. But I agree that discipline, and I would think that the more often, if you sit down and write every day for 15 minutes, I'd be willing to bet that over a long period of time, writer's block almost disappears, or it pops up less often.
Much less often, yeah.
Because you're just getting in the flow of it.
You get to a certain point where you're so familiar with the process that when you run into the roadblocks, you actually are like, oh shit, I've had this roadblock before, and last time I did this, and if I try doing that, it might not always work, but you at least start finagling your strategy in a particular way that you end up breaking through that writer's block quicker.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think writer's block is actually a good thing, because it means you're writing, right?
Yeah, so you're struggling. You're putting something real into it.
A lot of people run into roadblocks before writer's block. It's like, instead of writing, they're watching TV, or they're doing this, or they're on Facebook. There's so many other distractions that distract you from even sitting down to write. I think like writer's block's the least of your worries. For most people, it's, clearing the path to even sitting down and writing. And then if you hit writer's block, that's frustrating. But for me, it'd be like, well, at least I'm not on Facebook. I'm not distracting myself. Mm-hmm. There's something rewarding about, I procrastinate a lot, but when you finally do the thing that you've been procrastinating, even if it never sucks as bad as it does in your head. In your head, you're like,
does. You build it up to
like
this big monster.
It sucks so bad. And once you sit down, you're like, oh, it's really not.
It's not that bad.
It's not that
it might be time consuming.
Yeah, but sometimes you end up, a lot of times I end up enjoying it.
Yeah.
And maybe the first 5 minutes are painful, but once you get into it, and if you stay present, it's like, it's really not, you're not in physical pain, so it's really not painful. But yeah, so I don't know. But yeah, it is. It's an interesting thing. Like, why is your brain sometimes just so creative and flows flawlessly, and sometimes it's just like banging your head against the board.
Dude, it's part of the flow cycle, man. So the second step in the flow cycle is all about that struggle. It's the struggle phase. You have to go through the struggle. You go through this this period of, oh shit, I know the language of what I'm doing, but I can't seem to write the phrases and sentences that I want.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that as a metaphor, not literally writing, but once you get past that, then you hit that flow, and that's why it's like sometimes it just flows right out of you as if you didn't even write it, and then other times it's like you're pushing, and it's like going to the gym. You're lifting the weights to eventually go to the competition where you're gonna lift the big heavy shit for the audience.
I agree. And I think the struggle is what makes it rewarding.
Yep.
And it also is what causes creativity.
It produces the best work.
What was that quote you said earlier? Because something about the boundaries, like without boundaries.
Oh yeah, the enemy of art is the absence of limitations.
Yeah, so if there wasn't, if
there weren't limits,
if there wasn't writer's block and it was just so easy to just write,
you'd be paralyzed by how much is available to you, rather than being forced into like, okay, I have these parameters, and therefore I have to work within these parameters, and then you get super creative with that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, some of my best shit that I've made with video has been like, oh fuck, we got like 2 DSLRs, a mic, and we don't even have lighting kit. How can we use this stuff to make the best thing?
Yeah.
And you do the same thing in the editing room too, where it's like, all right, if this footage is okay, how can I turn this into better? I mean, I feel like I did that with the Rick and Morty thing. I was like, the footage is okay, but then when I threw a meme at the end, it gave it at least another layer to it that it otherwise, I think, was missing.
Yeah, that's everything. I mean, what is creativity? It's like repurposing things and figuring out, ways to use things. And I think people really appreciate that sometimes. You'll hear like a song and you'll listen to the producer and he'll be like, oh yeah, we were like, those percussions you hear were literally the spoons in my kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that. Like,
that's some John Bellion shit.
Yeah, they use some real shit. And that's
Salt
creative. But it's repurposing things for, not their intended purposes. And that's just outside the box thinking that I think is probably stimulated by being pushed into this box.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're trying to figure out, how do I get out of the box and think outside the box? And people appreciate that when they see some shit and they're like, oh, I think what people like about art is when art makes them think or reevaluate the way they looked at the world. Mm-hmm. Oh, I never looked at it that way.
It's a perspective shift.
Yeah, it shifts the perspective, but they recognize creativity as like, oh, I never would have thought of that. He thought really outside the box. Well, he got outside the box from being forced in this box for so long.
Exactly. Yeah, there's that the boundaries of the limitations that then create this boundless and infinite potential of the piece itself. Right?
Yeah. No, 100%.
I think constraints are important. I feel like constraints are what forces me into flow. That gives me the novelty and the problem solving required to even trigger flow in the first place. You have to have that element of it being a challenge. If it's too easy, you're probably not going to make something that's pushing the limits. It doesn't mean you can't make quality work if it's easy, but it's easier to make superior work when you're really pushing yourself to the next limit. It's ascending to that next level that really is what takes you to making a quality piece of whatever content you're creating.
And the truth is, if everything was so easy, you wouldn't be motivated to do shit. If everyone was just Superman and they could just do this and they could sing perfect songs right off the bat and they could make perfect art, it doesn't sound like it would take the fun out of it. You're like, oh, it'd be so fun.
It's not.
Skateboarders are always like, oh yeah, must be nice to be so-and-so. Well, it is nice because he worked his ass off and that's why he's so good. But also you're like, oh, to be a video game where you could just do every trick, every try. It sounds like it would be fun, but you would probably never skateboard again because everything would be too easy.
You'd be like, dude, I accomplished everything. I can do it, and who cares?
The challenge is what makes it so cool. If it was easy to do, it wouldn't be as cool. The things like, especially skateboarding, like the tricks that everyone's like, so cool, you see a guy do it because you recognize how difficult it was and, oh, that looks so hard. But if it wasn't, no one would be like, I don't give a fuck, everyone can do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what makes it cool, is the difficult part. And I think that's most artists and most successful people and actors, the reason they get all this praise from us ordinary people and stuff is because we recognize the level they've risen to, and most of them had to work their ass off to get to. Some of them might just catch a break and it's easy for them, but I think a lot of them I read their stories and stuff, and they just grinded to get there, and they're exceptional people because they went through this struggle to get there. That's what made them great, but we subconsciously recognize that when we look at, fucking Tom Cruise, or maybe that's a bad example.
Look at Matthew McConaughey, right?
Yeah.
Started out failure to launch, and like all these other things, which were of that era. I know were very common movies, right? Nowadays, I would say that type of romantic comedy doesn't live as well in the world as it did back in early 2000s.
Yeah.
But he now is in like Dallas Buyers Club, Interstellar, all these like thought-provoking hard roles where he actually had to be a dramatic actor. And he showed his chops, and I feel like the reason why he would take those roles is because he wants to push himself. Like, you could tell, Matthew McConaughey has a good work ethic. The dude has a fucking hard-ass body, so he busts his ass in the gym. Like, the dude takes care of himself.
Yeah, handsome like motherfucker.
Dude, he's a handsome motherfucker, man. He's a good guy. Like,
all right.
So I love out them high school girls, man. But yeah, no, he went from that to fucking those movies, and those movies were awesome. Like, and his roles in them, like, I fucking believed that he was Coop. I believed that he was Cooper. You know what I mean?
Like, an actor that can reinvent themselves and doesn't get caught in a thing, it's impressive. But yeah, I think, whether people are conscious of it or not, I think most art, that gets the highest praise, and, this art, like, whether it's a song or an art piece or a movie, we like it, and all of a sudden it's a bestseller, and maybe people consciously don't know that it's
they don't know why
put into it, but there's something undeniable.
You feel it.
Like, you can tell. You didn't see the work, you didn't even watch the behind the scenes of the movie and see all the hours put in, but the final product,
it exudes this ethereal, almost like coming from the infinite cosmos itself, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what a lot of artists talk about, is that you're tapping into this thing where you're like, yo, that wasn't even me there for that moment that I created this particular part or what have you. It's because there's this inner potential that all of us have, this inner universe that you occasionally can really tap into and fucking milk the unlimited energy coming from it. And on some of the best pieces of work that's ever been made, we're all tapping into that. And when you're watching it, you feel it, because we all have that same thing. Even though we're not always tapping into it ourselves, you can feel it when somebody else has. And when you listen to an album or a song, it literally gives you the fucking chills. I get goosebumps all the time.
That's what art's supposed to do. Make a connection to people, inspire people, and, hopefully make them feel something.
It's the connecting thread, the oneness of the universe that we're all a part of, that we forget because of the ego of our own selves, our own bodies, that we're so biased by our, I know Jason Silva calls it like the skin bag bias, where it's like we're biased by our own personal relationship with the outside world. From our own, like, Kevin the person, I'm biased by how I'm perceiving the world through my body, rather than seeing it for what it is on a universal level, where us as human beings on this planet as one big organism, and our Earth being in the solar system, and then our solar system being the galaxy, and like, you can't really have that point of view because you're only able to really access your own personal monkey point of view.
Perspective is everything, and it really is. Like, everyone has a perspective, but everyone has different perspectives, and they have the potential to have a million different perspectives. So when you see a piece of art or a movie, it could change your perspective for the better, hopefully, and you can nurse that, and maybe it only lasts an hour and it fades away, but you can bring that. I think that's like what I try to do with meditation and stuff, is to gain this outside myself perspective, or a perspective that I think is just too easily lost. There's a word for it, some big fancy word, I don't know what it is, but it's basically that we forget how amazing it is. Like, we take everything for granted to exist, because we've been, like, you and me have been in existence 20-something years, right? So now at this point we take it for granted, but, if you were just given a second chance, maybe you died and you came back, or you would have a different perspective on it. You'd be like, oh, I get another day. So I try to take that perspective every day, to just be like, everything, rather than like walk by a brick wall and be like, oh, the fucking brick wall, I saw it every day.
Dude, you wouldn't even think about the brick wall. Most people
don't think about the brick wall. But I'm always looking at things from a photographer, artist perspective, like, look at the details and the textures. And I do that for my art, but it brings you present, and there's so much you could look at that brick wall every day for the rest of your life and continuously notice things. That's how much detail is out there, but most of that detail gets overlooked. And because it has to, because otherwise nothing would get done.
You never get anything
but
done.
we lose a lot of the magic.
That's why you can't just stay in a psychedelic state. You know, you can't, because you never.
Most people have the complete opposite, where they're just, you know, they're walking in lines and they're not noticing anything. There could be a beautiful painting or the world's best violinist playing a violin.
Dude, they're a horse with blinders.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't notice any of it.
Barely see what's in front of you.
And I think that's where the perspective gets lost, where people are depressed and stuff. There's a quote, and it's like, the seeds of depression cannot take root in a grateful heart. Because if you're truly grateful to be alive, you cannot be depressed. And that's just perspective. If you hold the perspective that I'm lucky to be here no matter what, maybe you're in a cage, maybe you're in a job you hate, but the fact that you're breathing, you're pain-free, you got food, if you take that perspective, you can't be sad. And you look at anyone that's sad, their perspective is ungrateful. They're not being grateful for what they have. They're taking what they have for granted and being like, if I had this, if my girlfriend came back, if this and that. Well, and there's things to be sad about.
You can have moments of sadness.
Yeah, and I'm not saying...
You don't want your overall tone of life to be sad. You don't want to put a sad filter on everything that you're processing through your brain.
Which you can easily
do. You totally can. There's so many filters that everybody puts on your day-to-day basis. And that's what I love about psychedelics, is that they kind of remove them all for you for a temporary, period. And your very first filter is kind of the way that you process all that information. I see it as like, imagine wearing a bunch of layers of glasses with lenses in front of it.
Yeah.
And so each lens adds a layer. So the very first layer is kind of just like, in general, how you're going to perceive all the stimuli coming in, just of like, is this good or bad? Then outside of that is all of your individual biases. So I'm a white male, so white, male, 20-something, millennial, you keep throwing it on. Things that people keep labeling you as, things that people identify you as and subgroup you as, you start seeing through those biases, you start seeing through those lenses. And then all the information you're getting, instead of just taking it from, this is just pure info, you're already taking it from the jump, from the perspective of a white male millennial, for me personally, white male millennial, born in America, right? All of those things are all filters that we process all of our information through. So if you can find ways, it doesn't have to be permanently, but at least temporarily, to remove those filters, to see the information for what it truly is, without your skin bag bias, without your growing up and your personality and all the other things that make you who you are, or at least the illusion of who you are. If you can find a way to remove those, then you can really see the world in a way that is magical, that you see it as like, holy shit, like, why do we exist?
That's what I think. I mean, psychedelics definitely do that. Some altered states get you there.
Yeah, flow will do that too.
But definitely meditation for me, it's like, if you sit down, because most of us, I think it's just the American human sickness, our condition, our minds are racing, there's so much pressure. Go. So our minds are always racing. And I think I naturally have a mind that races. But so for me, it's meditation, to sit down and your mind's racing. And then after 10 minutes, you're in this peaceful calm where, like, wait a second, my brain's turned off. And then when you finally open your eyes and you have that clear view, you're not thinking, I'm a white male. You're not thinking, this happened to me yesterday. I got to text this girl. I got to call. I'm going to be late for work. You're so in the moment. You're so in the present. You're not seeing any of those biases. You're not seeing any of these labels. You're just literally seeing the information for what it is. You're like, a blue sky. Oh, beautiful flower. And you're seeing the true beauty. The true beauty and the things that are always there, but sometimes we don't see them because our brains are so busy and occupied and want to label this.
You only have so much brain power and we'll call it CPU usage, right? That you can dedicate to certain things. So certain activities in your waking state, you have to dedicate a certain amount of processing power to your body, like to being able to function and balance yourself, your vision, processing that visual information, your auditory, processing the audio information. All that stuff is naturally just like taking up a certain percentage of your brain. And then the remaining free percentage you might have to do free thinking or to do tasks or whatnot that's limited. So you can only spend so much time in any given moment on one or two things extra.
Yeah.
And so if you can find ways to spend that percentage, that CPU percentage, on things that are useful to you, that give you that new perspective, that give you that appreciation, I mean, I think that leads you to a generally more happy life.
Well, that's why I said presence itself. So simply just being present, turning your brain off, cultivates a beautiful perspective that, makes you grateful. Sometimes I try to do it at work, because because I'm like a bartender at a bar that's pretty slow. Sometimes there's no customers and I'm just standing there. And so I could just space out and I could think in my head, and sometimes I was good, whatever, run through some shit to do. But sometimes I'd literally just try to standing, eye open meditation and just try to remain present and not think and just be fully there. And all of a sudden you see the world in a different way, and then maybe a customer walks in and you're more jolly, or you're more open to their cues, you're noticing more things, and you have a better relationship. I think presence is really what's missing in Western society. We're so unpresent. We're so in our phones, everyone has headphones. Yeah, we're always thinking about the future, and that's what they say anxiety is caused by looking towards the future. You're worrying about the future. Depression is caused about living in the past, and peace comes from living in the present. And from what I've experienced from meditating over the past 4 or 5 years, I have truly felt that I've eliminated any anxiety I had through meditation, and it's just, you find this peaceful pace. You get better at revisiting it every time. But sometimes if I get anxious, I can just calm down, deep breath, and I can find that inner peace. And then from there, you can do a lot. Once you go from that peaceful place, we talked about putting on...
Then you think about things logically.
Well, then you can logically, and like I said, we see
break down the problem, and then you start attacking it at the source.
What I like doing from there is, like we were talking about earlier, we're walking around with filters, right? Well, most people aren't conscious of their filters. I'm conscious that there's filters. So I choose to put on the rose petal filters. I know they're rose petal filters. I know that I'm looking at the world probably making it look better than it is, but I see it as a benefit. I don't see... There is a benefit to not,
because it reinforces behavior.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like, even like some of the most beautiful lies can lead to the most beautiful results in your experiences because you have that frame. So if I'm framing everything from a positive perspective, even when it might not always be positive, it might be kind of a little bit closer to neutral and sometimes even bad. Yeah. If you can frame it in a way that you work it to your own benefit, then that's not even as much of a lie as it is skewing the narrative in your own favor. If you can turn events that happen to you that, to be honest, aside from your own personal bias, really there's no value judgment that you can place on things. Like
nothing is positive or negative.
Exactly. We label that. Yeah. So if you can find a way to label even things that most people might perceive as negative, and you can label it as a positive from a certain perspective, knowing like, okay, my car I got in a car accident, but the positive side is I'm okay, insurance will cover it, blah, 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 right? You can find ways to then turn an overall negative situation into something that you turn into a learning experience that becomes a positive one. And it might not become positive until it's retrospect. Yeah. But it still can change how you do it.
It's so good to do stuff like, well, you just said like the car accident thing. I've been in situations like that, like last year during the winter, I almost got hit by a car. And the first thing that I felt was really anger, like, motherfucker. But then I felt like grateful. Then like literally right about the same time I was thinking that was like how bad that would have hurt. Like I was like, I would be in so much pain. And then I just tried to put myself in the perspective of like, you're lucky. You're so lucky that you would be waiting for an ambulance if you're still alive to come pick you up, and then, all this bad. So it really made me be grateful, but there was a choice to be like, oh, were you going to nourish this anger, or are you going to nourish this being grateful? And there's only benefit to being grateful. What is the benefit of being angry? So now you become bitter, angry, depressed. So now for the rest of the walk to the train station, I'm pissed off, and now I got the blinders on, and maybe there's like some pretty girl smiling at me. I don't even see that because I'm so angry or whatever. But so a lot of times I'm always just arguing with myself like, there's no benefit to the negative. There's benefits to the positive, and like you said, the lie, like the lie.
Think about anger, right? How long are you actually angry? You're only as angry as long as you entertain the idea of what's causing the anger, right? If I stop thinking about the thing that made me angry, I can't stay angry. You just can't. Like, no one can.
Let it go.
Right? Let it go. Yeah, exactly. Frozen was right. Never even saw that movie, but...
or the Beatles, Let It Be. No, people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's ancient wisdom because
it is ancient wisdom. That's why it's become cliches. It's become so widely available that people forget how true it is.
It's so foolish to hang on to things because when it's over, it's over. You and that girl break up, it's over. And for you to sit there and dwell on it, like, I'm not saying that I don't, like, everybody does, we're humans and stuff. Yeah. But you are better off long term. The quicker you let it go, the faster you're going to heal and move on because
it's not healthy to hold on to.
No, and when you constantly are reflecting on negative things, you're building up negative energy in your body. And
then you're putting out the negative energy. That's the other thing that people forget is like when you're a negative piece of shit and you just sit there and everything you say is negative.
You attract negativity.
You're attracting negativity
and you put it out.
You're putting it out. You're putting it out in the world. And then people have to
put out there comes
that
back
energy. That energy goes somewhere.
Yeah.
So when you're putting out negative things and you're saying like, oh, I hate this job, or oh, that person that I work with sucks, or blah blah blah. If that's your whole fucking life, and everything you're thinking about is all these negative things, then you're creating negativity. You're literally creating negativity around yourself, and you're creating a bubble of negativity that anyone who's positive is going to immediately detect the negativity and be like, oh, nope, and they're going to fucking nope out of there. They're going to get out, and they're not going to spend time around you. So then all the happy people are hanging around the happy people, and all the depressed people are hanging out with the depressed people. And that's why they say misery loves company.
Misery loves company, and you'll notice it. I used to be a bread vendor, bread man, put bread on the shelves, and I came to...
The breadwinner.
The breadwinner. So you got to wake up at like 3 in the morning to do this job, and I came to the conclusion that most people that wake up early, there is something to people being grumpy when they get no sleep, right? Your body's on low sleep, it's stressed out.
Totally.
You're more stressed out. So I would notice that all these workers in the back of Walmarts and Jewel Oscos that I'm going to at 3 in the morning, everyone's kind of pissed off. And I'm on my coffee, and I usually got a good night's sleep, and I was making good money, and it was like, I was a pretty happy guy. I was meditating, doing all this stuff, but I would go in there, and I would so notice that if they saw like a hint of happiness, they would try to bring you down.
Yeah.
Not only does misery love company, they don't like people that are
happy.
Fuck are you so happy about?
Fuck you,
Why are
man.
you so? It's fucking 3 in the morning. You can't be happy. You fuck.
Yeah, you piece of shit. I'm gonna bring you down to my negativity.
Yeah, and you can allow them. And don't get me wrong.
They can.
They thoroughly accomplished it a few times. Where lady's such a dick to me that I'm like, I'm walking out of the room steaming. But other times I'm like, I see what you're trying to do, and I'm not playing this game. I'm just gonna smile. I'm gonna grit. Or even better, what can I do to just cheer you up? I see you're having a bad day. Can I how was your weekend? Like, I know now it's Monday morning.
The problem, right?
Like, how was the weekend? Or, and you really can cheer these people up. And it wasn't to say that all these people were miserable, but a good portion of them were miserable for probably multiple reasons. And I could definitely tell that they wanted the company and they wanted some other people to bitch and moan with them.
Well, think about how rewarding it is to pull someone out of that, but then also remember to calculate, is it worth it? Because there is kind of like an equation you can do in your head of like, how negative is this person? What would they be like if they were positive? And how much effort is it for me personally to help bring them there? Yeah. If it's not a lot of effort for you to bring somebody in the positive, it's totally worth it every time.
Yeah,
and if it's somebody you care about, then even if they're really far into the negative, it's worth it to help bring them to the positive. But if it's somebody who's a negative energy drain, who isn't even somebody you don't even like them that much, whatnot, dude, don't even waste your energy on them because they're not worth it.
That's the truth, man. You have to cut negative people from your life, and
don't be afraid to cut them.
You gotta cut I learned
that, savage,
and it took a while. It took a while to learn, but yeah, you literally, and it sucks when they're like your parents or a family member or a friend.
It's hard.
You don't necessarily. I'm not saying cut them, never talk to them, but choose
when to spend time with them. Then
if we were good friends our whole life, but you're just turned into this very negative person, and I tried to help you, change your perspective. You got mad at me. It's like, am I going to go out of my way to talk to you every day now when every time I talk to you, you're complaining and you're whining? No, and I'm not going to just ignore you and never talk to you again. Yeah. But
I'm not going to put any time or resources.
I can't be taking all your negative energy every day. And a lot of people, I get that. That's why people go to therapists and stuff. They got to get shit off their chest. And I understand that. And a lot of friends, I'm there for them to fucking vent to. Mm-hmm. But, at the end of the venting, can we cultivate a new perspective? Or are you gonna need to vent to me tomorrow for the same thing? Because then if that's the case and you're just venting every day, we're not solving the problem. And why, what are you so miserable about?
You're not getting to the root of it, you're just kind of complaining.
And the truth is, most people know what's truly bothering them.
They're just ignoring it.
And they're ignoring it because it's dirty work to deal with it, but I'll tell you what, I've gone through some shit, and when you deal with it, it's so rewarding, and it literally is a weight off your chest.
Lift it off your shoulders. Hell
you feel so good when you literally get that monkey off your back because, dude, humans, we go through some deep shit, but our problem is we hide it, and we either cover it up with drugs, or alcohol or women or even TV.
Yeah. Like any hobby.
This is on my mind. Let me cover it up. And there's some healthy hobbies where
you can actually express it.
There's a more healthy way. Like maybe you're pissed off. You had a bad day. Go to the gym. Let out that aggression. Mm-hmm. But to cover it up with drinking or
then you're not treating the problem. You're numbing it.
Yeah.
When you're numbing the problem, then it's getting worse without you feeling how much worse it's gotten. Then you get to a point where you're so lost and you're so deep into this hole of negativity that you didn't even realize that you've been swallowed up and there's now no light looking upwards, right? You're so far down that you can't even see the light anymore. And then you're like, shit, I'm at the bottom of the Mariana Trench and I don't even know how I got here. But meanwhile, if you looked on it on a sky view, you'd see the 6-month trend of you going deeper and deeper into it.
Well, you know what it kind of is, too? A lot of people's problems, they put a Band-Aid on it, but they're putting Band-Aids on it every day, so then all of a sudden maybe they got a stack of Band-Aids, and their wounds not seeing the light of day, and really your wounds heal faster without Band-Aids. When I don't put Band-Aids on shit because they scab up faster, that's that's just science, but it's also the metaphor of you putting you and a girlfriend broke up. Well, the Band-Aid is you getting high and drinking and, seeking out other girls. But if you just took 2 weeks to not drink, to be sober, to process your thoughts, to be healthy, how fast you would heal and how fast you'd get over the situation. So the Band-Aid, it feels like it's helping in the moment, but it's really prolonging the healing process. And you're better off just rip the fucking Band-Aid off.
It's like the Aleve, man.
Fucking deal with it. And sometimes it feels good to fucking, there's a weird thing about us humans. Sometimes we like getting hurt. There's a weird,
we're sadistic a little bit.
We're, sometimes feeling depressed feels good, and that's why we love sad songs, and people write such great songs.
Horror films.
There's something to that. So sometimes it's we're so scared to experience this feeling, but it really is. It's good to just, sometimes it's good to cry, man. When you really have a lot of pain built up,
let it out, man.
Guys are I can't cry. Can't cry. No, dude, we all fucking cry, and when you hold it in, the longer you're holding it in, it's when it finally hits. It's doing. Yeah, you're gonna cry like a little baby, and sometimes you need to just let it out, and it's fine. And when that's over, you're
you feel so much better.
You feel so much better. It's what's so wrong with letting some fucking water out of your fucking eyes? I don't even understand why. What?
Dude, it's just society. I mean, it's societal programming.
I'm just saying, I don't even understand what is.
Oh, what causes the tear ducts?
Why you're sad and then all of a sudden
I think the purpose of it is to signal to other members of the tribe, the original thing, is to signal to them that you're in distress, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I agree that it should be less shamed to have men cry, and it doesn't mean that because I do think that men are naturally not going to be as emotional in a public way, but that doesn't mean that we're not emotional in a private way, right? And so you should be able to feel comfortable in your own skin to express those feelings of sadness or happiness or depression or whatever it may be. You should feel comfortable, at least do it in the privacy of your own home and with people that you trust. If you can't do that, then you need to find some people because you need a support system. Nobody can do this alone. We are a tribal type species. We need other people to survive, and without sociability, I mean, then you're living in this lonely world where you cannot even realize how irrational your thoughts have become because you don't have another person be like, dude, are you kidding me? Why are you even saying that?
You're an idiot. That's the shitty part about social constructs and all the things we've been taught is they are imaginary and a lot of it is bullshit, but you heard it so much growing up, men shouldn't cry or whatever, you start to believe that. But that is still that's just programming. That's just a word that's a string of words that someone said, that's an idea that somehow your brain took hold of,
and you gave it energy.
It's completely false. If that's false to you, you want to live by a different narrative, you totally can. And I know there's a lot bigger social constructs people deal with, people feeling guilty about being gay or can't be in their own skin. I'm saying all things, if the social construct doesn't apply to you, it's easier said than done to ignore it and to live your true self. But if you can be confident enough to just stand in the pocket and be you and do if it feels right to you in your gut, own it, do it. Find the people that support that and live within that tribe, and you're so good. You're so good, and fuck everybody else that's gonna give you shit, because those are people, once again, negative people.
Yeah, they're trying to bring you down.
You get away from those people, and it's like, and those, most of the time when someone's criticizing you, if someone comes after you, it's like they're like, Kevin, this and yeah, it's projection, because they're insecure, so they're trying to make you feel insecure because they don't want to deal with their insecurity. They're saying Kevin's having an awesome day, Kevin's super successful.
Fuck him, man.
Fuck him. I'm gonna try to bring him down, and like sometimes I've had people just throw shit at me, and I'm like,
you're like, what?
And I get like, but I lately, like, I think it's just the older I get, the wiser I am, and I'm like, I can step back and be like, almost laugh, like I'm like, and they get confused. They're like, wait, why is he laughing? He should be really upset right now. Well, I'm like, because I can see what you're doing. Maybe you don't even know.
You don't even see the strategy behind what you're doing.
That person doesn't realize that they're doing it because they're upset with themselves. But they're the people that go around the world just looking for reasons to be upset, and they nitpick everything.
The social justice warriors.
Social justice warriors, or whatever you want to call them. Right. But it is recreational outrage. They go around looking at this and everything. Their filter is that the world sucks, and I'm going to look at the world, and I'm going to be like, that sucks. And well, I'm sorry.
Without fixing it. Without fixing it. Not proposing solutions.
You call that progressive, but you're not proposing solutions. And you are cultivating negative energy, and whether you see it or not, that energy is going back out into the world, making the world a bad place, and someone else is going to see what you're doing
and throw it at somebody else. Then
exactly, and you're getting caught in a negative feedback loop, and every day you're just. But you don't have to do that. There are real problems in the world, and you can see them, but you don't have to latch onto them. You don't have to get attached to them. And you know, some people find, like, whether they realize it or not, they're getting pleasure off nitpicking that because it elevates them. Yeah. Well, he's a piece of shit and I'm not. Yeah. So it elevates their ego. But long term, it's built up on so much bullshit. If you build a throne out of bullshit, eventually you're going to be looking around one day and you're going to be like, oh, it's a cool view, but what's that fucking smell? Yeah. What's that smell? Oh, you look down. Oh, I'm standing on a pile of shit.
Exactly.
Like, all of this was fake. All of this was bullshit. I elevated this level that, that you really can't keep up. And
dude, that's why you have to take the Daenerys Targaryen perspective. I know you don't watch Game of Thrones, but you got to break the wheel. You got to straight up break the wheel. See the cycle around you, recognize it, find a way to smash that wheel into fucking pieces, and build yourself a new goddamn wheel. And with that, Joey's got to go to work.
True, so and you might have just sold me on Game of Thrones. It sounded pretty badass.
Right?
I might have to go.
Dude, Daenerys, she's a great character.
I might have to go binge watch some Game of Thrones.
But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. And this was a really fun one.
Don't let the world beat you down.
Don't let the world beat you down, man.
Meditate if you don't meditate.
Take some time to take a deep breath. Appreciate your surroundings. Appreciate the people you have with you.
What's that app? Do you use an app for meditation? There was an
I use the Calm app, yeah.
I don't use an app anymore, but when I first started,
you can use Headspace.
Headspace was the one.
Any one of those, they're all good.
I would recommend anyone, dude, look into it. It sounds cheesy, but it's so good.
Start there, and then eventually you'll get to a point where you don't need an app. The thing that I like about the app, other than that it can play sounds in the background, is choose an app that lets you track it, so that way you can see just how often you actually are meditating. You'd be surprised how much you think you're meditating and how much you're not versus how much you are when you actually can see it on a calendar. But with that, we are going to end the podcast here. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks for being patient. Sorry that this one's a little late.